If you're watching this and you ever thought, I can't do this corporate thing for another year, I want you to hear me clearly. You're not lazy, you're not ungrateful, and you're definitely not too late. You're actually underutilized, you're undervalued, and you're carrying all of these skills that were built inside of corporate, but they were never meant to die there. So here's the real question as we go into 2026. I know it's like the end of January over here, but are you going to do another year of tolerating your life, or are you going to do a year of building your exit? Because new year, new career, right? It's not just like this cute slogan that we throw around. It's a decision. And today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to turn that just decision into a plan, right? Because if we don't make a plan, how's that old saying go? If you don't necessarily plan to fail, you just fail to plan, right? So we really want to lean into this idea of planning. So if we haven't met yet, my name's Shanice, and I help corporate professionals become entrepreneurs. So these are going to be people who are sitting on undervalued, these underutilized skills, who want to turn those skills into more, but they really need this clear strategy to walk away and turn their passion into profit. So I'm not here to just hype you up for 10 minutes, right, and leave you with nothing. I'm here to give you structure because courage is important, but a plan is what makes that actually sustainable. So let's be honest. January, everybody's posting their goals, their resolutions, putting together what they want their 2026 to look like, vision board parties. I feel like my timelines and my feed have been filled with them since like the end of December. But, everybody says this is my year, right? But by February, a lot of those people tend to be back in those same routines. So that isn't necessarily just because they don't want to change. A lot of times it's because people don't know how to change and they don't know what it is that they need to do first. So if you're a high performer, I work a lot with people, from sales backgrounds, IT backgrounds, different things like that in kind of that corporate professional world. You're probably used to being really good at what you do. You're used to results, you're used to certainty, and entrepreneurship like that can feel completely different. It feels like a risk. It feels like starting over again. For a lot of people, they may even have like their whole identity tied into their work. So, what do you do when all of that changes? And so, I really want you to think about this a little bit differently and have this mindset of, it's not that you're starting over, you're starting from experience, right? And most corporate professionals, they don't stay because they love it. They stay because of one fear. And that fear tends to be, what if I run out of money before my business works? And what I've learned coaching corporate escapees is this, like the goal, it's not to, quit impulsively, right? You don't get tired one day and walk out the next, right? The goal is to build a runway. And that career doesn't start the day you resign. It really starts the day that you create your escape plan. So, and I'm sorry, I'm getting over this whole like super flu or whatever they've been calling it out here. But when people say, new year, new career, I'm not just talking about a new job title. I'm talking about this new identity, right? How do we step into this new identity where we go from an employee to an owner, where we go from, waiting for something to building something of our own, from this idea of like, I hope this works to I have a plan for how this works. That whole shift, that identity shift, that mentality, it all requires this framework. So I actually teach something called the escape plan. I want you to write it down. It's going to be your roadmap, and I'm going to show you how I used it when I was creating my own escape. And it's an acronym, right? I'm a huge fan of acronyms. I'm going to walk you through those steps. So that first E, it's all about evaluate, right? Evaluate, where are you? What do you want? What are you no longer willing to tolerate? What does freedom mean to you? A lot of times I'll ask my clients, hey, let's pretend that we're sitting down, grabbing a cup of coffee a year from now. What do you want me to tell you about your day to day, your business? What is it that you're doing? And really get people in this space of, being forward thinking and really assessing themselves and what they want to do. And the interesting thing is this is where a lot of those questions happen. And some of them may be really uncomfortable. Some of them you may need to sit with for a while, but that is the first step, right? Taking that time to really think through, outside of the corporate structure and all of that. Like, what is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to do? What is it that how do you want to feel about your day to day life? And here's the key, right? Like, you don't need this perfect vision. You need an honest one, right? And for me, when I got to that point, I remember, and some of you guys may have heard me talk about this before. I remember telling my leader at the time, like, hey, I when I hit 60, 70 years old, like, I want to look back and say, I tried, I put my best foot forward, win or die, right? Like, I put my best foot forward and I tried. Like, I can live with that. I cannot live with looking back at my life and saying, man, I really wish that I had done something, right? So having that time to just sit with yourself, think about, evaluate all of those different places. And then from there, it's that S is all about strategy, right? You strategize your exit. And this is where most people skip steps. They jump to, what business should I start before they answer, what skills do I already have? What problems have I, repeatedly solved for corporate? What do people already come to me for? And so, like, for those of you guys who may be in sales, right, you understand like persuasion, pipeline, relationship closing. For those in the IT world, you probably understand things like systems, troubleshooting, business solutions, process. Like, it's really taking the time to understand you're not empty-handed, and really taking some time to assess what those skills are that you already have. And then that C is all about the core, right? And so I kind of define the core as taking the time to determine, how are you going to set your business up, whether that's from a legal standpoint, from a financial standpoint, terms and conditions, all of that stuff that people tend to maybe skim over, but is super, super important to figure out what it is that you need, and kind of the remainder of the steps. Also, where a little bit of conversation starts coming in on, like, how do you want your business to feel, right? Like, what type of language do you want to use? What kind of, like, vibe do you want your business to have? How do you go about creating that? And then from there, we move into that activating. So it's like you stop researching, you start moving. This may look like, talking to people, testing some different things out, starting to, post, getting comfortable with being seen. And yes, like, this is where that mindset matters, because, you can have the best plan in the world, but if you're hiding, nobody's going to hire you, right? So this is where I really encourage people. You got to put yourself out there. You have to start seeing what is it that your potential clients are interested in, and just start having some of those conversations. And then for me, one of my personal favorites is all about that positioning, right? It's positioning, it's how do you become that obvious choice? You don't necessarily need to be the loudest, but you do have to be very, very clear. And this is where I do a lot of work with my clients. If me and two other people can look at, or, even hear the things that you're saying and get, come up with different things that we think may be the best fit, or who you're working with, right? You're not clear. So this is all about getting very, very clear, not just in who it is that you help, but how you help them as well. So positioning for me sounds like, I help corporate professionals turn their skills into a business, right? No matter who you are, you hear that phrase, you know exactly who it is that I'm working with. You understand exactly what it is that I'm helping those people with. I help you build an exit plan without gambling your savings, right? Again, very, very clear. And this is where I would encourage people, strip away some of that, some of the corporate language, strip away some of the, how do I put this? Right. Like, a lot of times in certain businesses, like, there may be like catchwords that people use. Take all of that out. Like, what is it that you really mean? What is it that you're really trying to get across? How do you put that out in the world so that as soon as somebody sees a post that you make, hear the way that you work with people, they're able to say, oh my goodness, that's me, or hey, that's not me, but I know this person over here, right? How do you really work on getting that clarity in your communication? And when people understand what you do, they can refer you, they can buy, they can follow, right? They're able to raise their hand and say, that's me, or I know somebody who that person is. And then finally, it's all about execution. And honestly, like, execution, it is the difference between those dreamers and those owners, whether that's weekly action, accountability, building momentum, improving as you go. And honestly, it should be all four of those, right? Tied in together. as part of your execution. Excuse me. And I want you to hear this, right? Like, you don't need to be perfect to be profitable. You just really need to be consistent, consistently putting yourself out there, consistently talking to your clients, your customers, and consistently improving, right? And that only happens in that space of execution. So here's what I want you to do today before you scroll, before you go back to your day. Take 5 minutes and answer these three questions. Okay, so the first one is, what do I want my life to look like by the end of 2026, right? I already told you guys that's one of the first questions that I ask anybody that works with me, right? Going back to that whole idea of, hey, we're sitting in a coffee shop a year from now. But go ahead, ask yourself, what do you want your life to look like by the end of 2026? The second question I want you to ask is, what skill do I have that I'm currently underpaid for? And honestly, once you start jotting things down, it'll turn into a list really quickly. And then the next thing that I want you to do is ask yourself, who already needs that skill right now? And if you can answer those three questions, like, you're not stuck, you're at the starting line. I'm so excited for you, for your journey, where that path takes you. And honestly, like, if this message hits you, it's because you're not meant to stay where you are. And I want you to remember, a new career isn't a leap, it's a build. If you want help building your plan, I run a 5-day corporate exit strategy challenge. I would love to have you guys participate in it. Shoot me a note. And if you're watching live, tell me in the chat, like, what are you claiming for 2026? New year, new career. What does that mean for you?